Hi knitting friends, Shaina Bilow here. In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate how to sew a mattress stitch seam on garter stitch. The project that I have to work on today is this baby blanket that one of my students knit, and it's got strips of different square panels, and I've sewn together already two of the panels here. So now I'm just going to sew the third panel right here. One of my favorite tips when seaming together a project like this, where you have strips for a blanket, find the center, and that's where you'll begin. So we're actually going to work out from here in this direction. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to go in this direction. Then I'll turn the blanket around and I'll seam this side as well. So I start in the center because I find it easiest to manage discrepancies in row counts on only half of the project at a time. All right, so I've got my tapestry needle with a lot of yarn here, about 2 times the length of my project of yarn, and I'm going to find the center stitches right here. So I'm going to, on this block here, I'm going to count in with my fingers till I meet the middle, and then here at the middle, I'm going to grab this little bump and this little bar underneath. So with garter stitch, we've got on the edge of the work a bump, which happens to be the garter ridge. On the other side, it's hiding. And the bar, which is the same sort of piece you'd pick up if you were seaming in stockinette, like in this section here. So a bump, like what you have in reverse stockinette, and a bar, like what you've got in stockinette, because that's what garter stitch is. It's a combination of reverse stockinette and stockinette. All right, so I've got my center stitch. I took a bump and then a bar. And I'm pulling this yarn through, leaving half of it for the other side. So I've got half of my finishing yarn this way and half on my tapestry needle. In this scenario, I am using the same yarn to do my seaming. Oftentimes, I will recommend using a different yarn, and you can watch other finishing videos that I've done to learn why. Here I'm going to find my center. So boom, 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 boop. Here's my center. And now you'll recall on this side, on the first side, I picked up a bump and then a bar. The key to making garter stitch look good in your seams is to work the opposite on the other side. So I'm going to first pick up a bar and then a bump. So I've offset the two. So I've got my bump and a bar. And on this side I've got a bar and then a bump. I am seaming one full stitch in. So I have a full selvage stitch here. I've got my bump, then my bar, so the hiding one. And then on this side I've got my bar first, then my bump. So offsetting the two stitches, or the two rows, on one side of the piece and the other is how you will get a nice smooth finish. So I'm diving in, bar bump, diving in, bump bar, and I'm going for a little bit, and then I like to keep it loose as I go. You'll see that there. My mattress stitch is pretty loose, and then every 2 inches, 3 inches, I pull tight. And there I have a pretty seam. Then I loosen up the last stitch and I'll keep seaming. Now, in this case, I have a blanket that may have different length squares. So I might have 50 rows here and 60 rows there. When I get to this point, close to the end, I will count the ridges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on this side until I get to this garter section. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on this side until I get to the garter section. So I can actually, smooth sailing, keep finishing this as I was, where I'm taking the 2 rows to the 2 rows where they're offset. One is the bump bar, one is the bar bump. If I noticed that I was off by a row or 2 on one side versus the other, what I could do is take only half of a stitch, or only half of the scoop. So instead of taking 2 bars, I would take 1 on the shorter side, then go 2, 2, 2, 2, and then take another single on the shorter side. And you would repeat that for every number of bars, garter ridges, that you had difference. And the one thing you want to do there is just make sure that you don't stack up all of your single bars in one section. You don't want them all to be right here, otherwise it'll pucker. You want to stagger them. So that's why, you stop to check it out and see what situation you've got going in terms of row counts, and then work that in as you're doing the long seam. That's another reason it's nice to start in the middle of the blanket. So here I had a little stockinette. Just going to fudge that a bit. I'm actually going to take a single here, the double here, double here, double here, and then my single. So I kept it in the back of my head that I had a single stitch. Now I'm doing my doubles again until I get past this garter section where I had the full, like a little stripe of garter stitch here. There's a lot going on this blanket in terms of texture, so it could be hard to see. And I've gone a ways without tightening my seams, so here we go. You tighten it, and then with garter stitch especially, you want to make sure that you kind of, after you've pulled the seam, so you could really cinch it up, after you've pulled the seam, you want to make sure you flatten it a little bit. So that's a garter stitch seam. I'm just going to finish up the blanket on this side. Then I'll turn the work around and finish it going this way. Happy seaming!